Renegade University is proud to announce that this week's guest on Unregistered, Jack of the Perfume Nationalist podcast, is now a member of our faculty. You will see Jack at the Renegade University weekend in Texas, October 8th to the 10th, along with Hotep Jesus, Scott Horton, Deirdre McCluskey, and Cody Wilson, along with me and Buck Johnson, in an event sponsored by Paloma Verde CBD. Go to renegadeuniversity.com/Texas for more information and to get tickets for the biggest freedom event of the entire year. Also, Jack will soon be teaching a 3-part webinar called The War on Beauty in the 21st Century. Go to renegadeuniversity.com/courses for more information and to enroll. I'll see you in class, and I'll see you in Texas. Thanks again to Headspace for sponsoring the Unregistered podcast. To get your free 1-month trial that started me on my Headspace journey and that changed my life 6 years ago, go to headspace.com/renegade. This is the Unregistered podcast, and I'm Thaddeus Russell. This is a show about ideas, people, and behaviors that are considered inappropriate, out of bounds, or beyond the pale. The things you're not supposed to talk about if you're a school teacher, a college professor, a businessman, a politician, a parent, a neighbor, or even a podcast host. These are the things you're not supposed to say or even think if you're a good liberal, a good conservative, or a good citizen. Each week, I'll interview a person who has something bad to say. They might be a journalist or a professor. They might be a porn star or a drug dealer. They might just be an ordinary person with an ordinary job who doesn't care about the rules of polite society. I'm not interested in breaking the rules just to be a troublemaker. I'm interested in people who break the rules of conventional thought and to expand the scope of what is possible to say in our society. I'm interested in people who make me think. According to my guest this week, in the 21st century, we have experienced a war on art, beauty, and our sense of smell. But we can win that war by looking to the past. This is my interview with Jack, the Perfume Nationalist. I am joined from Austin, Texas again by the great Jack of the Perfume Nationalist podcast and the newest faculty member at Renegade University, whose course, The War on Beauty in the 21st Century, is going to change history, I think. I'm so excited for this. And
Me too.
It is. No, because no one has ever, I think, proffered the analysis that you have of the culture we're living in now, which I want to talk about a lot today.
My extreme exhaustive research and facts and logic and facts-based analysis.
People should go to renegadeuniversity.com/courses and click on it, and they can read the course description. I think it's the best course. It is the best course description we have, I think, of all the RU courses. Jack wrote it, and you'll see from reading that this actually there is a lot of research and thinking that went into this. Don't you think?
Well, there is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's just not the conventional cite your sources, facts and logic.
No, well,
but if all those bullshit French theorists can just write a few sentences and get heralded for their genius, then I can summarize my thoughts on things.
Well, I mean, you're doing cultural analysis. I mean, it's not, you're not doing math or science. So yeah, no,
facts and logic are nonsense. So.
I mean, you do research all day, every day in a way. You're looking at the culture around you and critiquing it relentlessly. I mean, aren't you? You have one of those.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you have one of those minds that's just constantly like grabbing things in front of you and chewing it up.
Yeah, I don't know how to do like basic car maintenance, take my car to the auto shop stuff, but I do remember like Natalie Portman's real name or something, stuff like that. So yeah, I'm constantly thinking.
What's Natalie Portman's real name?
Netta Lee Hirschlag. They made a joke about it on 30 Rock.
Of course it is. I've met her and I've seen her twice in public just randomly, which is so strange. She's the celebrity I've seen the most. I don't know why. She's really teeny tiny.
Well, yeah, of course she is.
She has like no body.
She was like awful, like way before all white women acted like that. She had that kind of like sour, condescending face and the like Ivy League education, right? And like,
yes.
And I, you know, being 34, I lived through the 2000s where guys like worshipped her without a trace of irony. And this was before like there was a Jezebel informed normies what a manic pixie dream girl was. So they all took her totally seriously in Garden State. Now they pretend not to.
Wait, a manic pixie.
I remember.
What's a manic pixie dream girl?
It's this thing that liberals always say, like it's like a female archetype of like a like dreamy, free-spirited girl who like kind of bohemian, usually meets a tragic fate in the end and sacrifices something for the male protagonist. It's said to be a sexist archetype, but it was like cute and people liked it. But there were all these Jezebel and Salon type articles about it. Oh, like really? 10 years ago, and now it's part of the lexicon.
I stopped reading Jezebel and Salon about 10 years ago. No wonder.
So if like female characters have any kind of like charm about them, now they're they crack down and say that's a manic pixie dream girl. You can't do that.
Oh, I see.
He has to be totally charmless.
Oh, of course. Yes. Well, charm is patriarchal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. Well, that's amazing that you said that, because when I met Natalie Portman, so I used to be married into a family with a big Hollywood executive in it. So I met a bunch of movie stars when I was married 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And almost all of them were super friendly to me. That's the thing about, I mean, talking about big movie stars, like very friendly, not like we got into deep conversations, but not Natalie Portman. She just held out her hand and sort of looked away as she shook it. Yeah.
I wouldn't think she would be friendly.
No.
It's like Black Swan was like, okay, because that movie it seemed like it was making fun of her. But everything else, like Jackie is just like having indigestion, like bad gas. It's just,
right.
Yeah, she's
I also, she had, when I noticed that she had like no body. I mean, you don't notice her on the street. You don't think that she's a movie star at all. And she's super tiny and skinny and just like a waif, but with no presence, which is that also admirable?
Yeah.
In the world?
Well, movie stars, in my experience, they're all nice because they do the dirty work through their assistants. So everyone's left with the impression that, oh, they were nice, but their assistant immediately calls and says, why weren't there a dozen roses in the hotel room? Who's responsible for this? But they're all nice in person. But also, it's very trendy for them to like make themselves as ugly as possible. Like the women never wear any makeup in real life to like as a brag to show how much ugliness they can add to themselves and still be beautiful. So it's always this kind of like boho, dirty hair. It's pretty boring. Some are really glamorous. Carla Gugino was a genuinely glamorous one that I met.
Yeah, I can see that. Glamour. Let's talk about glamour for a second. What's the state of glamour in America?
Non-existent.
Completely?
I mean, it's just basically everything's just like Soviet now, but not even with Soviet glamour. Trying to think, is there any glamour? Like Camille Paglia would try to make the case that she likes those Real Housewives shows, which I've never been able to get into. She claimed that soap opera glamour went there. I think they're pretty bad from what I've seen of them. I guess there are like little hints of glamour online, but truly nothing. I mean, like drag is not glamorous. It's just another like wing of the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
It isn't even like gay men being funny anymore. It's just like, you know, they have to like include women now. So all the like the drag shows have like women contestants that they affirmative action to the finish line.
Wow.
To make a statement.
They're not even drag kings. They're just women.
They call themselves drag kings, but that's not a thing that's real.
You don't think so?
Yeah. No. Drag is a man dressing up as a woman.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, there have been
and being cruel about it usually.
I mean, overwhelmingly is. Changing topics, I just noticed your t-shirt. So I own one of those t-shirts, the Ghost Jail podcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts. You and I have both been on it. Can we talk about that and give a shout out there? It's
oh yeah,
it's unlike anything. I mean, there's your podcast and their podcast, I think, are the only two that I'm aware of. I know there are many others, but like that I would consider to be art podcasts. But theirs is, I mean, Ghost Jail is a different beast entirely. It's, how would you describe it? I've tried to, is it like an audio montage?
It's like a, they're like feature length sound collages, and they're really intricate, all with original music over everything. The editing, all of it is nuts. I mean, the first 6 or 7 of them were kind of themed around social issues like mental illness, war, women. But then the last one, the Burdo Center, was just this like naked lunch, William Burroughs extrapolation on an in-joke that we had about drinking Burroughs piss. And it's like spins off into the galaxy, and it's just everybody online in this like future where they're just drinking his piss all the time in this like Tom of Finland bathhouse called the Burdo Center. It's really amazing. Yeah, I always loved it. But yeah, that last one, it's just stunning.
Yeah, wow. I haven't listened to the last one. I was on, I think maybe the one before that, School. Yeah,
you had the most racist part of all of them.
I did. Yeah. Was I racist?
Like, damn. Yeah, yours was like about your resentment of busing.
Oh yeah. And Kamala Harris.
I was impressed.
Thank you.
Kamala Harris.
Yeah. She and I were in the same city, in almost the same neighborhood at the same time when we were kids, and we were both bussed at the same time. First kids in the country to be bussed in Berkeley, California in the early 70s. And she, of course, talks about it as a point of pride. And I talk about it as, an example of racist social engineering, where every kid in the city had to be moved to some other school to achieve perfect racial equality in each school, which is just straight up. I mean, that's just old school racism in a way. I mean, it's,
well, we know how it worked out perfectly because racism is over now.
And she's now vice president. So it's all
legitimately elected vice president. Yeah, popular with everyone,
and she's doing such
fan base.
And have you noticed she doesn't seem to be doing anything? They seem to keep her like quiet. I mean, the whole Afghanistan thing, she just didn't have anything to say about it. Like, she just has not been. She's so unpopular, even among her base.
Doesn't the White House just like literally have an electric fence around it now, and it's just like tumbleweeds blowing by, and like no one goes in and no one knows what's happening? And
I would think so.
I mean, isn't that literally the case? I've been told that.
So. Well, I mean, this kind of goes to your thesis in a way, and I was thinking about this. The blandness, the monotony of woke, whatever we want to call this, woke culture, the stuff that you critique, it's awful in all sorts of ways. But one of the ways in which people don't realize it, it's just so boring. Like, because you see the same stuff over and over and over again. It's so repetitive. And she's, of course, part of that culture and is produced by it. And I think it's produced really boring people. But
if you don't know anything else, then there's nothing else that you can do. So that's why they have to erase everything.
Yeah. And I think it's sort of self-destructing on them, because they produce candidates like her, politicians like her who no one likes, because she has nothing to say that's of interest, except stuff that's sort of mean and judgmental. Like a school marm. I don't know. I mean, does that make sense to you? The Soviet culture, which I see all the time. Well, you see it in Austin too. I mean, It is Soviet style, but the one of the things about that is that no one really likes it. No one really likes it, even those who believe in it.
No one likes it at all. No one likes it whatsoever. No one likes woke movie making. There's never been a substantial like original hit besides Get Out, which was like a competently okay thriller that rode on the like immediate post-Trump wave of people wanting to support racial grievance messages. But no, nobody likes it, and it's not like anyone fondly thinks of the weird experiments with intellectual properties that constitute movies now, where they just swap in a diverse cast of characters to illustrate a political utopia that doesn't exist, that no one likes. And no one likes it at all. And the only thing keeping them quiet about it is fear for their jobs and livelihoods and reputations, which they might not even know. Like, they might still think, if they're dumb or normal, that Democrats are the good guys, liberals are the good guys, and the thing that they think of as conservatives are bad. They don't get it.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering if there's ever going to be a rebellion against this. The generation that's now young, the youth, I believe this is the first youth generation in American history, at least in modern American history, that hasn't been rebellious against its parents.
Yeah, they all wear masks.
Yeah, they love wearing masks.
Teenagers love wearing masks because their parents might be like 32 years old and see through COVID. And so they see wearing masks as a class signifier that they're associated with New York Times and TikTok and all the nonsense they see on their phones, which their parents don't monitor and control.
Yeah. Why though? Why is this the first generation? I mean, my generation rebelled in some ways. We created punk rock and hip hop, and then
social media would be the short answer, I think. Just like the internet was originally supposed to be this like libertarian, like, open information highway or whatever, and then turned into this top-down corporate government monopoly that's being used to control elections and control people's minds and consolidate wealth and power. Social media, I guess, in the early days, which my generation was the first that they experimented it on. Like I still had in high school calling people on a landline, and then they introduced MySpace in like 2006, 2007.
Yep.
And it was just kids on there, and it was fun, and it was just like music, emo music, stuff like this. Everyone chose bisexual as their as their sexual orientation, because that was popular then.
Oh yeah.
And then grown-ups got online. Everyone went on like Facebook. The heyday of Facebook happened, which I guess climaxed in the Russian misinformation of 2016.
Yep.
And now it's all like fragmented into Twitter for old people, TikTok for the kids, which is just like Chinese brainwashing, Chinese degenerate brainwashing to like, it's like worse than Pokemon ever could have been.
Well, you don't like dancing? You don't like dancing?
Not that. Whatever TikTok is, no, that's horrible. Like the boys it can be kind of fun, where it's just like a guy like drinking a bunch of gross stuff. But of course, the other gender went in the opposite direction, and they're doing the, pointing at the word colonialism, and it's the most disgusting, shameful display I've ever seen, and anyone who participates in it should not be on this earth. You should have more self-respect than allowing yourself to be indoctrinated by such things. But that's just me.
That is just you, spoken like Jack the Perfume Nationalist, I gotta say. All right, let's I want to change topics, come back to culture and the demise of American culture in a second, but we got to talk about the news. So the abortion ruling, and I saw you tweeted about it a little bit, and I know your position on this. Well, I think I know your position on that. I've heard you talk about abortion a few times. But so I am for legal abortion, kind of radically. However, I have total respect for the anti-abortion argument, because no one can ever prove to me that it's not murder. And I just don't think that's even a case that can be made, that it's not murder. I just also don't think you can make the case that it is murder, but I have full respect for it. I just think we just have to fight about it ultimately as to what the law will be. But I think the critiques of the pro-abortion or the pro-choice side, I think, are spot on. And one of them is that, well, why don't you talk about it? What's your take on abortion? What do you think of this ruling? And what do you think of sort of liberal very hysterical, by the way, reactions to this ruling by the Supreme Court? I mean, the feminist liberals I've seen have been going crazy over this, and maybe with some justification, although I think at most it's just going to mean that some of the red states, who are overwhelmingly anti-abortion, are going to be anti-abortion, which I think is just fine because the people in those states want that. And if you like democracy, you should allow them to have that. But that's not okay. They want to jigger the system in all sorts of ways so that people can't actually choose what they want at the state level. But anyway, I want to hear your take on abortion and sort of, especially sort of the liberal and feminist views on it and their feelings about it mostly. What do you think?
Ooh, this is like an old school like press moment where they ask you about abortion.
I know.
It's obviously murder. I think that even if you believe it should be legal, then you have to acknowledge that it's murder, and the whole altering of reality that goes on, where people dehumanize the baby, has kind of led to our present situation of altering reality with gender, COVID, government, everything. It was just an early example of that. Am I like the most radical anti-abortion person? No, I think it's wrong. How could I make a definitive statement? I won't make a definitive statement because, like, I understand I'm a gay man, and we're like disease spreaders, spread AIDS everywhere. So I'm familiar with personal sexual behavior having horrible moral consequences, and anyone who tells you otherwise is lying to you, just like AIDS activists. But I think that abortion is something similar to that, but for women it's like a morally disturbing thing that shouldn't be celebrated. I don't think it should be. People should be getting like back alley abortions. I don't, it's like divorce. It should just be harder to get. I don't think no one should be able to get an abortion. But I also don't think no one should be able to get a divorce. But these people, whenever this stuff happens, like, you can still get an abortion. Like, it's never going to be totally outlawed. That's never going to happen.
Right.
It's just a good publicity because it gets people emotional, and they can pretend that what happened was that abortion is totally outlawed. But I just read what I believe to be the greatest work of feminist literature, feminist art of all time, Lace by Shirley Conran.
Oh, yeah.
Which was made into a popular TV miniseries with Phoebe Cates in the 80s. And it starts with this like horrifying graphic scene of a 13-year-old girl getting a back alley abortion in France. And it's all like second wave feminist themed. It's all about how they have to abandon this girl that they got pregnant with. The four women, one of them got pregnant. You don't know which one it is. They leave her in a foster home. They think she's died. They have their wonderful 80s like dynasty type careers and all become successful in their own ways, but they had to sacrifice her. And she comes back for revenge and says the famous line, "Which one of you bitches is my mother?" But my feelings on abortion are more accurately captured in the book Lace rather than in anything that I could say. I'm not an extremist though. And the pendulum is swung too far in the satanic dehumanizing direction where people just, and also another thing that's annoying about it is that the people who are most obsessed with abortion are wealthy, largely white women who don't even get them. They just go to college and become obsessed with the issue, and then call on the phone and donate their father's money to Planned Parenthood. It's not even like a real thing for them because they're all fried out of their minds on birth control already. And then 38 rolls around and they realize, oh, I really do want a baby. And then they have to do all this artificial HR Giger stuff to get one. But
that sums it up. One of the things it really has always bothered me is, well, just the tremendous dishonesty about the pro-choice discourse. They never mention what it's mostly about, which is people having the ability to have sex without consequences. That's what it is. I mean, that's why people want abortion. They want to have.
Not real. That's a real early red pill, and if you don't realize that, you're in for a terrible surprise. Is that there's no sex without consequences,
right?
And literally any attempt to have sex without consequences has ended in disaster. And fortunately, no one's having sex right now. None of the alleged sex workers online, which are just spoiled women who kind of do this webcam thing as a vanity project for themselves, a masturbatory vanity project, and pretend to be hookers on Skid Row who have no option but to formulate this noxious combination of communism and online prostitution that they all have. And that's not real. They're not having sex. Gays might be having a little, but it's really gross because they're all bottoms. Too many bottoms in the world contributing to the death of the West. Trans people are certainly not having any sex because sex for them is what I call spectral rape, which is canceling someone online, choosing a target, and then doing this like crazy crucible style justice finger pointing. So their sexuality is entirely like transhuman, transferred to the internet, raping people on the internet, which is a sexual act. They get really mad when I say it. It's not just trans people, it's everyone, it's all liberals.
Totally.
Their actual sexuality is all sublimated into the act of canceling and social justice.
Yep.
Because that's the only, in this time that we're so hyped up constantly about rape and sexual assault and catcalling and all of this, the only acceptable thing to do is choose a stranger online and relentlessly go after them with a group of other strangers with this flimsy moral backing that you've made up and the full support of the highest levels of power in society. So that's what sex is right now. But a lot of rightoids, conservatards have this really dated, stupid idea that liberals are like sexual in a literal sense.
I know.
Which drives me crazy.
I know.
I have to explain this constantly because they just don't get it, because it's more exciting for them to think that like nerdy, good grades, mousy brunette college white girls are going to college and getting blacked and having, millions of crazy Dionysian orgy at all times. And it's like, no, they have like 3 to 4 like awkward sexual experiences, and then they just donate a bunch of money to Planned Parenthood. That's what they do. And then they get like a beta boyfriend that they can kind of control. But no, there's no literal sex involved. But for the small brain conservatives, it's more exciting to think of this like sharp, dated, and accurate dichotomy between crazed libs who are teaching their children masturbation in the schools on a banana, and that's just easy. It's easy for emotional appeal in the same way it's easy for emotional appeal to blame everything on gay men, because the specter of anal sex gets people more like emotionally disgusted and excited on both sides of the spectrum than actually attributing Drag Queen Story Hour or whatever to those responsible for it, which is women, liberal women.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. 6 years ago, in November of 2015, I was in a world of trouble psychologically. I had tremendous anxiety, panic attacks, obsessive thoughts. It was a mess. And I finally decided, after a lot of cajoling by many friends over the years, to do something that I had avoided, which was to try to meditate with headspace.com. And I did. I'll never forget it. After 10 minutes of using their free 1-month trial, which I'm offering to you now by going to headspace.com/renegade, after 10 minutes, I felt as if the very chemistry of my body had changed. On top of that, meditating every day using mindfulness through Headspace has taught me techniques, practices, and simply a way of being and an attitude about the world and about myself that have just changed my life, I think forever. I use Headspace techniques every day, many times a day. When I'm walking down the street, when I'm trying to sleep, when I'm just trying to calm myself, Headspace and its techniques are always there. The brilliance of mindfulness has worked for me better than 10 years of therapy, better than psychoactive drugs, better than prescription drugs, better than anything. So I urge you, give it a try. Go to headspace.com/renegade for your free 1-month trial, the very same trial that started me on my Headspace journey 6 years ago. Headspace.com/renegade, free 1-month trial. Let me know how it works for you. I think it will. Thank you. Too many bottoms in the world. So that might be the root of everything.
Which way Western bottom? That's one of my, or no, which way Western top? That's one of my theses.
Yeah. What do you mean? One of your theses?
It's a joke, but the I just say which way Western top, because everybody, like, I'm not even talking about the literal act of bottoming, but everyone now has this like noxious public bottom identity, which consists of being like helpless, not wanting to pay for anything, because that's, just expressing a need for a daddy that's sort of like based in Lana Del Rey and various fantasies of patriarchs in the 2010s, because there are no strong straight male patriarchal figures anymore. Male authority is gone, male strength is gone, so it's understandable why it has occurred, but gay men in particular just choose this mewling, helpless, gross, I'm just a bottom on ketamine, like just passed out on ketamine, like they're really, really nasty kind of identity when they could just be like normal guys. And my message above all is be normal. A while ago, our podcast message switched from live, laugh, love to be normal. And everyone knows what being normal means. You, the audience, know what being normal means. Everyone acts like a freak now and they should stop it. But there's this performative bottom identity of being helpless, and because it's safe, because being like the sexually aggressive one, the intellectually aggressive one, the first one to do something is stigmatized, and everything, all of society is designed to punish you if you're the one who hits on someone first. But if everybody's just a bottom squirming on the couch on ketamine, waiting for someone else to make the first move, nothing's ever going to happen, which is why we're in the current situation.
Wow. That's acute. And a gay culture.
Straight men are all bottoms too now.
Yeah, well,
they're autogynephiles. Yeah,
I've been noticing this. Yes, I mean, I don't know the numbers or anything like this, but it certainly seems, with a lot of anecdotal evidence, to be true. Yeah, so gay culture, gay male culture, and we've talked about this before, but I guess I didn't realize the extent of this. So there aren't tops going on. It's not a thing anymore, or less so. I mean,
no, this is kind of like an eternal joke of gay men, is that they always like say there are no tops. But I'm speaking even more than the literal sexual act of the archetype, the self-selected identity of being a top, and just having some kind of authority or confidence or fearlessness about what you're doing, and daring to make the first move. But yeah, it's just easier, like especially with the younger ones, they slide into this bottom identity because they listen to their little SoundCloud divas, they start smoking their USB marijuana, they get online on TikTok, they do this. You can't be a regular gay man anymore, because then you get called a white gay online and you can't say anything, and then you're part of the problem. So they choose some sort of gender thing to do, which now those grotesque acrylic nails, you'll see like a regular gay man wearing this grotesque acrylic nails, like in that video of like the White House intern or whatever that and I always say gay men get one thing. We would all be walking around looking like Joan Collins if we did what we wanted. But all of us. But you get one feminine accoutrement. Mine is the perfume, which counts for a lot, but like you get one. If you want to have like your little nose ring or whatever, I would advise against it. But you're going to try it anyway because you're gay and you want to dress like a woman and do all this stuff. Don't have long hair. You can't have long hair if you're gay. You can't have long hair if you're fat whatsoever. Straight men can do a lot of these things, the nose ring, the long hair, and look kind of cute. It's different. If you're gay, you have to emphasize the masculine in order to be presentable and seem trustworthy and not like a demon from the lower circles of hell that's coming to steal people's children, as you know, was what gays look like right now.
Right. And so being normal, let's talk about that. I mean, you said everyone knows what that means. I got to say that I can guess at it, but I'd rather not, because, you know, I come from the po-mo world, unfortunately, and the queer theory world. And there's a very famous book in queer theory called The Trouble with Normal. I mean, the whole attack of queer theorists was against the idea of the normal to begin with. And they would have all sorts of trouble with what you just said. I don't have trouble with it. I'm just curious about it. I'm guessing that what you mean by normal is sort of the dominant cultural norms of, say, 20 to 30 years ago. Is that what you mean?
No. Normal means acting like a sane person and treating people in a sane manner, not participating in spectral rape online.
Oh, well, yeah.
Not doing witchy, trolly little stuff. Since everything's online now, as they designed, because that was one of the big points of COVID, was to funnel all of life into the social media smartphone panopticon. It's up to people to behave in a normal way rather than like just letting their worst impulses out online in this grotesque, dehumanizing manner.
Yeah.
You know, having done this for like 2.5 years now, I have like the Kinsey breakdown of like every type of like gross online behavior. And once you meet someone normal and sane, it's like really reassuring and wonderful to like meet a genuine friend who's not a troll or a libtard weirdo, just someone who treats people like they would in person. Doesn't choose a random person online to villainize and obsess over all day. Tries to use their brain about things. I mean, yeah, it's a lot about online behavior, but it's a lot about just having decent Christian moral values and treating people well as you'd want to be treated.
Okay. Yeah. No, I am completely down with that. Yeah. So
I think it's nothing about like queer, though.
Oh yeah.
Whatever, those theorists, they've had we see the results of their efforts now, and who likes it? No one. So they've had their moment. And now regular people know all of that theory.
That's an important point. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think what you've been describing, the sort of online behavior, is, I would call it sadism. And you talk about it as a sexual urge, and I think you're right. I think it's sadistic, which is sexual, right? Is that right?
Yeah, it's sadism, but like truly satanic sadism in this way is never actually exciting. There's never any like real like sexual release, like libtard dehumanized transhuman sexuality. Puritan sexuality is so like weird, like angry, masturbatory, like lesbian, kind of like furiously like rubbing off until you have like a scab but never coming, and you know, like and then thinking because you're stupid and shouldn't be talking online, shouldn't have a public platform, that this is somehow for the good of someone, that you're one of the good guys. If you're having an easy time in public life right now, you're not one of the good guys. There's no gray area. There's a good side and there's a bad side, and it's clear which one is which.
Absolutely. People love to hurt each other, and it's so easy to do that online. and it's become its own sexuality, or parasexuality, or something like that, right? It's not, because it's not actual fucking, it's not actual touching, but
no, none of it. But they pretend, they like libtards, grotesque demonic libtards all pretend to be like in constant pursuit and like highly desirable online. Though you can see that they look like goblins and ghouls. And that sort of performance is part of it. And normal people like boomers like don't understand anything that's happening. How could they know? They think it's, once again, the bacchanalian orgy of just libtards letting it all hang out. And it's like, no, we're in the midst of the most puritanical anti-sex moment in human history. People have never been this scared of human sexuality ever, at any point. This is insane. And it's all liberalism. It's all Me Too. It's all social justice. It's all Black Lives Matter. No one has ever been this scared of human sexuality. And that's why people are doing these sadomasochistic performances of spectral rape online, which Polly predicted, because Polly's whole thesis with Sexual Personae was that in the twilight days of dying civilizations, there's an excess of androgyny, transvestism, transgenderism, and sadomasochism. And we're currently in that, and it's probably just the early days. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah, I completely vibe with that. I've seen Puritanism, I mean, that's what I write about, in American culture from the beginning to the present, and I don't see any diminution of it. I mean, I see things competing with it, of course, that are not puritanical, but the Puritanism is rife and powerful, and I think you're right, especially, or maybe entirely, especially among the people you're calling libtards, liberals, modern liberals, and the left generally. They've never liked sex. They've always had a problem with it. They've never wanted to talk about it in any real way. And I think that what you're describing is sort of this dehumanization of the culture, and sexuality is so human that I guess that's the first thing that they're going to target. And so I agree with you that there's this mass repression or suppression of sexuality going on, and people are just simply not having sex. Or is this really true? Are millennials just not having sex as much?
Yeah, it's absolutely true.
Yeah, it seems like
it's 100% true. And human sexuality is rooted in biology and unnerving, disturbing, dark psychological undercurrents that disprove any organizing measures of society or what that says about human nature. So they ostensibly want this kind of open conversation about sexuality, but what that is this commodified, controlled channel where it's this like abstract theory that's taught in schools, but just in service of kind of Democrat liberal policy. Or it's something that they can cynically make money off of, such as the sex work craze with spoiled college girls, or OnlyFans, which the OnlyFans conversation pisses me off. This is another thing that right-wingers don't really get, because they once again pretend that you're paying for satisfying good, like hardcore pornography. But really what they're paying for 97% of the time is just to chat with a girl and be led on. And then, it's like a picture of a close-up of an eyeball or a close-up of a butt cheek. But it's, no, libtards aren't going to give you a satisfying hardcore porno in exchange for your money. They're going to give you like a chat that's leading you on from some girl who's brainwashed by them.
Right. I guess it used to be called a tease.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't exist now, because we've gone out into outer space where rape is just this like magical spell that can be cast like a video game thing on anyone retroactively at any point, and has no objective definition. It doesn't constitute any kind of like action or act, even though everyone, just like everyone knows what being normal means, everyone knows what actual rape is. we're out in the galaxy now. It's like the ending of like Stephen King's It, where it's just like psychedelic, like turtle floating through space. That's where we are with like uh, with whatever the definition of rape is. And now just rape is everything but what libtards are authorized to do.
That's right. That's right. It's whatever they say it is.
They have been given the authority.
Yeah, I really want to talk about happier things. So I really want to talk about perfume. But I also want to talk more about the culture we're living in and continue to smash it. So, but let's talk about perfume for a second, if you don't mind. Then we can come back to the bland, sterile world we inhabit. And your mission is to bring back humanity, and one of the ways is through the sense of smell, which you say has been neglected or totally forgotten. People don't smell like anything, as you say in the course description for your course. But I just want to talk about your favorite perfumes. I want to know what you think. I mean, I've heard you talk about them, of course, but I would love the audience to know what you think constitutes a great perfume. Why is it great? And I'd love for you to talk about specific perfumes that you're a big fan of, like Angel or Poison or Opium, those that you talk about a lot on the podcast. What is it about them? What is it about a great perfume that makes it great to you?
The ones that I consider great are unanimously polarizing. You'll see a lot of negativity about them online if you Google them, especially from people who are around at the peak of their popularity, because in order for a perfume to be memorable, it has to be strong, and to an extent, it also has to be weird or have something novel about it. I understand the desire for wearability. I don't think my project has never been about giving people lifestyle advice for like wearable fragrances to attract the opposite sex.
Right.
It's about analyzing the art and deciding how you want to incorporate that into your life. It doesn't just work like you listen to the Perfume Nationalist and you buy Aromatics Elixir and then everyone in your life says you smell good.
Right.
Which I feel bad because all these like straight guys are like buying all these weird granny perfume. It's awesome. It's awesome that they all wear them. But yeah, it's like, there's the issue of the girlfriend who's with your sudden new hobby that's totally bizarre to people on like a psychological level where their associations with grandmothers and age and whatever are mixed up with their boyfriend. But I don't care. That's cool. What else do people have to do?
Right.
But also perfumes at their greatest represent a time when great corporate art was really possible. Great design. Like now there are so many releases and most of them are forgettable. And they just have like a pink juice and uninspiring image of a celebrity and some sort of frozen girl boss pose and some tossed off copy about being a confident woman taking charge. That's what we have now. But back in the day, the great fashion houses only used to release like one perfume every like 5 years, really 3 to 5 years. Wow. And that was like their pillar perfume they promoted for a long time. And designer perfumes were originally a way for middle class and poorer people to be able to have a couture item, a designer item from Yves Saint Laurent or Cabochard or Grey or Dior, whatever. It like a $100 bottle of perfume is something somebody can buy. A $40,000 couture garment or whatever is not something anyone could buy. But it also promotes the brand. It also forms name recognition. It's smart marketing. Mm-hmm. The peak of perfume design for me was the 80s, as I always say, where the names became very disturbing. The ads became very dark and lush and strange. The perfumes themselves were stronger and weirder. and in many cases more off-putting than they ever would be. And regular women at the office were just going around smelling like a cathedral at all times, wearing opium or whatever. Opium kicked off the craze for like dark, controversial names for perfumes.
Yeah.
And it was genuinely very controversial. It brought back the Oriental genre, which is heavy incense, spices, resinous materials, which there's currently a minor woke campaign to rename this genre ambers, which is ridiculous. And this is being spearheaded by the two people who wrote the greatest book on perfume ever, Luca Turin and Tanya Sanchez.
Oh no.
Who are libtards on Twitter now, and Luca Turin has me blocked because he's threatened. He's a threatened libtard. But opium set the stage, and then we had Magie Noir, black magic, which is a very sinister smell. These orange satanic looking stripes on the bottle, weird alchemical symbols on the box, ads that showed like an eclipse, spooky eclipse, and all of this. It's just so endlessly fascinating to me that like people's moms were wearing something called black magic largely during like the height of the satanic panic. Like nobody else seemed shocked by this but me. Everybody's like, oh, it's just a bit of fun. But no, I'm quite shocked that people would adorn themselves with something called black magic. I get worried about having so much of it around the house. Poison is another one.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Bottle shaped like the Snow White poison apple.
Yeah.
There were angry academic feminist articles about the misogyny of poison, even at the time in the 80s. Which is just brilliant, drawing on all of these archetypes of the evil queen and female sexuality is toxic and deadly. And poison was one of the ones that was famously responsible for there allegedly being like signs that said no one could wear it, or Georgio in restaurants. That's something people always repeat on the internet, but I don't know how real that is. Georgio Beverly Hills, the eponymous fragrance from the original like Rodeo Drive boutique, which was kind of a club for the rich and famous in the 70s and early 80s. It's this loud yellow tuberose thing that was everywhere in both the real thing in the form of dupes like Primo. And it really epitomizes the like 80s open obsession with signifiers of wealth that are considered tacky and gauche now, like caviar and lobster and Rolls Royces and fur. And, you know, that's why I'm so situated in the 80s, because I'm like a middle class, working class guy who has these kind of like rapper notions of what wealth should be like, and actual rich people don't do anything with it except endlessly travel, the screeching sound of wheeled backpacks, wheeled luggage at all times, and they don't flaunt their wealth or buy anything interesting, just travel.
So here's the words I wrote down while you were talking. So you like things that are polarizing. That was your word. You like it when, and I love this, when working class people have access to high fashion and high style, right? And luxury. And that's the perfumes that you're talking about were that they gave access to working class people to that world. Then the words that I was writing down that are synonyms, I thought, for what you were saying, are you like things that are disturbing and luxurious and hedonistic. Are those words that you would use, or are those fair?
Oh yeah, totally. Okay. Advertising has been so thoroughly purged of sex that the stuff in the 80s, like the Calvin Klein ads for Obsession, where it's just writhing, sweaty bodies.
Yeah,
you don't see anything like that now. But as is the case with like nudity, sexualized female nudity in Hollywood movies, libtards and academics still pretend like that's the case, that advertising is sexual. It hasn't.
I know.
No, people have been teaching ninth graders in like small towns that, you know, the Holocaust of anorexia from sexualized advertising. They've been teaching that for like 30 years. Do not.
Yeah.
Speaking to the present moment, there hasn't been sexualized female nudity in a movie in 25 years. Showgirls killed it off. The masterpiece known as Showgirls, great movie. That was the last grand experiment in sexualized female nudity in a high budget Hollywood movie. And
oh shit. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
No. It has to be, if there's nudity at all, it has to be a female director. They have to have this NPR Terry Gross approved set of excuses where like the role called for it. I made myself fat to get naked, or they have to be like old. They have to wait till they're like 57. There can't just be like a tit that's supposed to be sexy, because you immediately get the storm of articles about rape. That's rape. Nothing else is rape, but an actress agreeing to be paid to show her breasts and her being attractive rather than some kind of like Hulu social justice scolding operative. That's rape.
I keep getting emails and messages from unregistered listeners who tell me about how much they love their Paloma Verde products. And that's for a lot of reasons. Maybe chief among them is the fact that Paloma Verde gives us, and only us, the kind of deal you simply cannot find in other CBD companies. We get 25% off every product in their store. You just go to palomaverdecbd.com and use the discount code RENEGADE, 25% off everything. It's amazing. But on top of that, you get the unregistered combo pack for 33% off, and that includes my 3 favorite Paloma Verde products. They're soft gels, which have 25 milligrams of CBD in each one. I use these every single day. They're gummies, which I just eat pretty much all day, every day. And I have to get re-upped by Carlos and Vanessa on a regular basis because of that. You get 10 milligrams of CBD in each delicious fruit-flavored gummy. My favorite thing that I've talked about a lot over the last year is their high-potency, fast-acting tincture. I put a few drops under my tongue, as I just did before I started recording this, and my anxiety just evens out, melts away. So again, go to palomaverdecbd.com, use the discount code RENEGADE. Oh, also, one of the reasons people love Paloma Verde, they're family-owned and operated by Vanessa and Carlos Abelar out of San Antonio, Texas. And by the way, Vanessa and Carlos believe in freedom and liberty and peace and love. They are us and always have been. So again, go to palomaverdecbd.com, use the discount code RENEGADE, get the best deal on CBD you'll ever find. Support an independent family-owned business, and I thank you.
Where do we start from?
Well, I was reading words. I mean,
hedonistic.
Hedonism. So that's a word that you're okay with? That you would that you would own? Yeah.
Yeah, I love if people went to the department store and purchased these like signifiers of like the dark, uncontainable undercurrent of their own sexuality. There's a funny Roseanne episode where she wants to buy a perfume that she doesn't responsibly have the money for, and it's clearly supposed to be obsession. It has some funny name like that, like some like murderous kind of like entrapment, sinfulness, whatever, you know, all these like biblical 7 deadly sins things. That's so fun compared to this just current mode of advertising where you're just supposed to buy the product out of social guilt and just because, for no reason. They don't have to try to get you anymore.
Right. Yeah. No, hedonism. Yeah, I've been a champion of it for a long time. Some people are shy to adopt that word or to embrace it, but I think it's always been the fight. It's been between Puritanism and hedonism, right? I mean, that's, to me, it's a civil war that goes on inside of us, most of us, and it goes on within the culture at large. And I'm still struck by this factoid that you put out there about, which I guess is right, about female nude sexuality not being in movies since Showgirls, which was what, the 90s or something? When was that movie?
It was 1997.
Yeah.
Of course, like the people will like cherry pick little instances in the comments and go, he's wrong. But no, it hasn't been a standard thing. The 2000s, which were hedonistic compared to now, and the movies were all like the quote unquote torture porn things, and women were still very much in the Paris Hilton, Britney Spears mode.
Right.
Those didn't have sexualized tits and ass like movies of the like 80s or before or 70s would. It was gone by that point. Those 2000s movies all had these moments where somebody who didn't do nudity was playing a stripper, like Jessica Alba in Sin City, or like Lindsay Lohan in I Know Who Killed Me, or Natalie Portman in Closer. It was already established that, you know, the American actress must not do nudity. This is not the case, of course, for European actors who know what they are, which is mannequins and like slabs of meat, and they're there for their appearance, and they know it's part of acting. They'll disrobe for anything. But American actors have this unique idea that they were like selected by God to move civilization forward with social justice, and they lose their powers if they show a nipple. Unless it's a female director rape scene. They're made to look ugly, like monster, or they're old.
Wow. This must also help explain the ubiquity of porn, of online porn, because we've got to get off somehow. And so if we can't get off by watching movies anymore, and it occurs to me that I haven't had sort of a sexual impulse about an actress in a long, long time. Maybe that's what it is.
Ooh, they make sure you don't. I think they finally killed it off for good with the debut of Brie Larson, who's just like this chick, like this office chick that they were like, I guess who's going to be the next star? I guess this just like this girl who's both not that attractive and extremely uppity and seems down to parrot all the social justice talking points in a really as obnoxious a manner as possible. And you see how, in order to continue promoting like the old female stars that were famous for their sexuality, like Britney Spears or Paris Hilton, they have to launder them with these stupid documentaries now, where they say that was forced on them, and that it also wasn't really a part of their image, and that they were victims the entire time. Like everyone knows the Britney Spears situation, but that was, the culture was totally different, and the way that Britney Spears was perceived, this kinder whore thing, which was similar to like Brooke Shields in the early 80s, which is like unthinkable now, but all the press at the time was just about how like she was a whore, like she has this weird autonomy, like she's choosing to do all these hypersexual things, and it was just very different then. But the Paris Hilton one, where they made this documentary where the whole thesis is that she is fighting against this trauma from being put in like a corrective, like boarding school thing for misbehaving, and that all the dumb blonde stuff is not real. She's actually so like smart and deep under that. This, like, I'm a huge fan of Paris Hilton, and this made me like her so much less, because it's so like, it's so obvious what it's doing. God. And how it's manipulating people, but it works, you know, because then libtards and dirtbag leftists feel safe liking Britney Spears and Paris Hilton, things that normal people liked before.
I used to use Britney Spears and Paris Hilton as the great examples of hedonism versus Puritanism, but I guess I can't do that anymore.
Well, Britney is kind of fortunately, Britney is grandfathered into the culture. She's like Elvis in a way, where you can like dissect all these like problematic aspects of her, but people all over the world know exactly what she's a star for and what she's good at, which is like singing these wonderful pornographic pop hits while wearing like denim shorts from Target, and like a little bikini top, and having ratty blonde extensions, and she's perfect, and that's exactly what she is. And
thank God.
And
thank God. Yeah, Brie Larson, when you talked about her, so what was the movie in which she's I read the book and I watched the movie and I can't remember the name of it, where she's she's trapped. She's a
Room.
Yes, where
I've never seen a movie with her.
She's just a fabulous victim. You know, she is held captive by this man who you never see in this room. She's locked in a room with her son, and he comes regularly and rapes her, and then eventually they escape. But yeah, and I'm struck by her as being the current it girl. She's the it girl, but she's an it girl that I don't want to fuck particularly, and she's so ordinary in some ways. And you're right.
She's like all, you know, after Marlene Dietrich left, like disavowed the Nazis and left Germany, they have these like fake Dietrichs that they tried out. She's like one of those that nobody, it's just like this kind of like product that they keep forcing. But I don't see her as much anymore as I did a couple years ago. Maybe they realized it doesn't work, but they can also just, it's so off in outer space now that they can just wheel out all the old Disney celebrities and have them say that they're non-binary now, like Demi Lovato. So that gets just as much press as creating a new star like Brie Larson and announcing them with your like Showgirls press conference. Right. I think she's the best star we've ever had.
That is so on point and so interesting. Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. I haven't had a sexual impulse for a movie star in a long, long time. And I guess this is what you're talking about.
One benefit of it all is that men are way more sexualized now, just in the way they're shot in these terrible current movies. Like since men can't like be like patriarchal or like have any like common sense or be good at anything in movies anymore, they just kind of like dress them in Western wear, and they all have these big beefy 2010s asses that nobody had before. And they shoot them in a more full-bodied, like lustful way. So they're kind of the tits and ass now, which is interesting, but the product is so bad that's
right. Schitt's Creek, have you seen Schitt's Creek?
I've seen like some of the first season.
That's exactly what happens in Schitt's Creek. I was so pissed off. There's like nothing to look at from a straight guy's perspective in that movie, in that series. But almost every episode, there's some dude with a shirt off who's just, and the camera just lingers on him. And you're right. But they're always they're just beefcake eye candy. They're not interesting.
The reboot of Dallas from 2011 was really ahead of the game in this aspect, because it cast a bunch of like unremarkable, kind of like harsh looking 6 out of 10 brunettes as all the women, no blondes whatsoever. And then like seriously hot beefcake guys that are just like crazy hot. And that's kind of how everything is now. The women, if they cast like conventionally hot or especially blonde, which is problematic, women now, they like don't do it. It's always just this kind of relatable office chick brunette who couldn't stand in for any ambiguous race that they want. Right. That's so, wow. Well, I guess this is the feminization of the culture. That's part of it, right? It's women, or at least our perceived notions of what women want was dominant now. And that explains what you see, right? You see men as just eye candy who are not really people, and otherwise, and then women are no longer sexualized, because the shows like Schitt's Creek, I think they're made for women and I think maybe by women, or at least everything is made for women. I mean, there's not one single aspect of pop culture that's made specifically for men. It's all tailored to women, because women, that's nothing new. It's just women have always been more voracious consumers, and also in many ways more open to manipulation in that way. No, that's profound. That's a profound insight. So I was thinking about you 2 days ago as I was in New York City. I was in Manhattan, in the West Village, actually, the home of the beatniks, the hippies, the Greenwich Village sex radicals. Do I need to go on? Gay culture. And I was walking down the street, 7th Avenue, and I saw this very large, brand new salad. It's not a restaurant, store, I guess you would call it. The chopped salad things, the chains, and I thought, my first thought was, oh, I love salads. This is great. I'm going to get a salad. And then I looked at it, and it's this very large white box.
with no, I don't think there were tables in it. No seats. But a counter, of course, with like workers sort of lined up like on an assembly line making the salads with plexiglass shields separating them from the customers. And of course, you walk in. I didn't go inside, but I looked at it very closely. You walk in, you get in line, and you tell them what you want, and then they do the assembly line salad preparation. They give you salad, and you walk out the door. And again, it was this huge, very large white box. Most of the space was unused, no dividing walls whatsoever. And I thought this is Jack's hell. This is what he's been talking about. This is it, right? And the fact that it's a salad too.
That's at least it was white and not gunmetal gray.
But I mean, I thought, yeah. And there are so many places, stores, restaurants. What's happened. Let's talk about food for a second in this country. I mean, you can't. It's really weird to get table service. When I was in New York a couple of times, I went to places that had table service, and I'm so now conditioned. Like I got up to go get my own silverware and my own water, and they were like, "Oh no, sir, we'll come bring that to you." I was like, "Oh right, of course." I felt like such a child. Like I'd never been in a restaurant before because I've been infantilized. I mean, 10 years ago, of course, I would have expected people to bring me my silverware and my water and my salt and pepper, but I'm so conditioned by this and so fucking infantilized by it. It's almost every, certainly in the Bay Area where I am, almost every restaurant, even the fairly high end ones, are that kind of counter service.
Isn't that convenient how
it is?
COVID has acclimated everyone to paying astronomical amounts for everything through this insane inflation. So people are used to paying like $45 for a fast casual Uber Eats meal. Amazing. Multiple times a day. That's all rich people do, is they just
really
order delivery all day, every day.
Wow.
Delivered by Africans. And
right.
That it's gotten us used to that. And it's also gotten us used to the quality of everything being shittier and shittier and shittier and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and more inconvenient in every way. Isn't that interesting how the totally real pandemic of COVID-19 has done that, where the people on top can make everything cheap and horrible. Everyone will pay way more for it, and everything is inconvenient and scattered and bad, and nobody even remembers what it's like to eat in a restaurant with basic table service anymore.
Yeah, well, it's a cafeteria life. You know, it's institutional in a sense. I mean, that's the feeling you get. You don't get any warmth at all from that.
No, I mean, they had to purge all references to warmth, family, phases of life from the restaurant's corporate image, because they see that they have this rapidly aging population that is not having kids, and just promoting something like fast food as being fun is politically incorrect because of the cursed documentary Super Size Me, which is like that and Bowling for Columbine are like the two things that created the modern libtard.
Okay.
Mainly Super Size Me. That was the first time that I really saw what like smug libtard propaganda could do, because that's the documentary. It's from like 2002 or 2003.
Yep.
One of the first like trendy documentaries that everyone saw, where this guy goes around claiming that no one knows that fast food is bad for you. And he's like, what if I ate McDonald's for a month? What would happen? And the predictable thing happens. And so that's why McDonald's became associated with, like, in the public mind, with the grossest kind of corporate excess and abuse and manipulation of people. And so they had to stop, putting toys in the meals, indicating that there's any kind of fun. And now McDonald's just look like a literal like prison. Like they keep, every time I think that they can't take anything away, they take something else away. And it's not like easy. Like they have to raise the whole thing to the ground in order to paint it a darker shade of gray and like remove an image of a white person from the advertising. And now all experiences of public life are just totally joyless like that, because they're all stigmatized as this imaginary thing called white supremacy. So yeah, when they unveiled that COVID was the real virus was white supremacy and toxic white masculinity last year, that was a stroke of brilliance on their part, because any kind of enjoyment of the old world as it existed before this consolidation of wealth and power is associated with racism, the worst thing in the world. So if you're going out and enjoying having fun at a bar or a party or whatever, you saw how insane normies and libtards were. Like, they're a little more like free and ennobled now, and maybe suspect that everything is not what it seems after they brought the masks back and everything, and invented the Delta variant. But during peak COVID, during first COVID era, you saw these posts from normies where it would be like a picture from 2 years ago where they're like with other people, and they would always have this explanatory text that says, lol, it's 2 years ago. We wouldn't be doing this now. And then you had the war on holidays or whatever, that holidays are toxic white supremacy because it's family. And, you know, that the war on Christmas was already real, very, very real. But then it turned into this other thing where if you see your family for Christmas, then it's harming Black people, super spreading. So what else can they do but just make everything more expensive and shittier quality and more inconvenient, because it's all profitable for them.
You know, that people saw their families during Jim Crow, Jack. That's what that's about. Yeah,
I mean, the history of Thanksgiving turkeys and, you know, just ridiculous.
It just all goes back to the 1950s for them. Everything goes back to the 1950s for them, right? They're imagined 1950s.
Yeah,
which was just Black people getting bitten by dogs. That's all.
Yeah, it was
that's all
like
that happened.
Constant public lynchings and and minstrel shows on every corner, everywhere. Despite I Love Lucy being on TV and the first hit television show portraying an interracial relationship,
and Sidney Poitier being one of the biggest movie stars for the entire decade,
and all rock songs of the 50s being pornographically about sex.
Totally.
But yeah. It was just women on pills, housewives on pills. I hate hearing them like recite. You know, libtards get their info from just like the same tiny pool of sources, and they have the same tropes that they go to over and over again. And I just, you know, like the apocryphal Black woman, I am so tired. I'm just so tired of, you know, when some fucking woman online tries to claim that the 50s were just about housewives who wanted to work and do science, but they were on pills because they were depressed. And how much of a fucking idiot do you have to be to get this idea and think it's real? Give me a break. The 50s were great.
Except for the 3 Black women who were actually responsible for the moon landing. That was
hidden figures.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is amazing. Yeah. There's always a few Black women who are responsible for all the big stuff that happened in American history. You know,
I wish it was all as like open and funny about it as hidden figures. I think that's really just like this alternate reality.
I mean, that movie,
I always think of that. Yeah. Like, people always steal my shit and don't give me credit because I'm problematic. And I always think of hidden figures.
It's the best. It's the best. Yeah, the moon landing couldn't have happened without those 3 Black women. No doubt about it. It's obvious. The history of NASA depends on that. I want to talk about colors with you. Maybe this will be the last thing we talk about. But yeah, you see a lot of gray and white in the world. Or you talk about gray a lot. I guess this is true. I mean, part of the problem I have when I talk to you is that it's actually hard to remember what the world looked like and smelled like and sounded like before what you call neoliberalism, you know, before the 2010s. Is it, just tell us, is this true? Like, are there fewer colors out there in the world? And is gray that dominant? I guess I know.
Yeah,
I know it is.
These muted SSRI hospital tones that won't inflame anyone's passions. Like,
right.
I was like looking for bath towels at Target and just wanted like one bright color to make the monotony. They don't even offer them anymore. It's all like the millennial dusty grayish pink and like hospital seafoam.
Mm-hmm.
Gray. This kind of minimalism, it's just a cynically deployed aesthetic thing that they have successfully convinced people is a mark of sophistication, or like the present day, or something being clean or updated, but it's just cheap for everyone, cheap and clinical. The laminate floors, people hate carpet, like performatively hate carpet, like you'll hear people with the NPC face say like, think of all the germs in the carpet, think of all the germs that get in the carpet. The same type of people that hate baths and say you're stewing in your own filth if you take a bath.
Right.
There's this set of like normie responses to everything. No, carpet was really, it was obviously more expensive and harder to care for, but I miss so much the 90s when every house you could just like roll around on the floor and it had this like warmth and comfort to it. And now we just have these laminate wood print floors, which when they were implemented were supposed to signify the kind of like IKEA Nordic sophistication, minimalist modernism, Euro whatever. But now they just really remind me of making it easier to put sawdust on vomit and mop it up. And the filth that would be contained in your comfy carpet is all just like sticks to your feet now. It's not it's not like it's objectively cleaner. It's
That's
just
right.
on the bottom of your feet and these giant tumbleweed like dust bunnies and balls of hair that blow around your little minimalist apartment. But yeah, it's cheap, it's one size fits all, it's profitable for corporations. It's easy. No one has any physical belongings anymore. It's just an iPhone cord, a charging station. Everything has been redone to just be like charging stations. The funniest part of it is we were talking about the 50s, and it all has this evocation of the 50s because of like the mid-century modern thing that's been popular for 10 years, which I originally liked. Many aspects of that I liked because I like the 50s, but there's these like strange low couches with a bunch of charging stations, and everything is designed for like atomized experience, atomized little headphone isolated experience, like Hulu shows and all of your little streaming shows. None of them are loud. None of them, if you watch like a real movie from the 20th century, it seems almost unbearably loud and cacophonous. The Hulu shows just have this Trent Reznor at the 10th remove kind of like ominous ambient drone, synthesizer drone, which evokes a bit of nostalgia for the 80s or whatever, which can give critics something that they can say is sophisticated, but it's all designed so you can watch it and nobody else in the house is like disturbed. It's just this low drone. That's the sound of everything now. Wow. I was like listening to the Dr. Zhivago soundtrack at work. I was like, oh, it's classical, I can listen to this. And people were like so disturbed. They're like, what are you watching behind there? It's classical music. It's pretty. Sorry, anything. The modern environment. If you play music, people hate music now. Music is so over, and everybody hates music. And everything is like too intense for every situation. They'll complain unless it's like a like Jack Johnson kind of like Island Vibes acoustic cover of like Katy Perry Firework. Then a woman will walk in and go, whoa, somebody's having a rock concert in here. A little intense, like, and you're just playing like, I don't know, the Rolling Stone, the Beatles seem like unbearably cacophonous now. I was like, oh my God, can I get away with playing the Beatles at work, this rock music, because it sounds so loud, because everything is just, if there's female vocals, it's that the Billie Eilish SSRI Nora Jones drone that they put over the Amazon original series commercials, where it's like a cover of like Paint It Black and in an SSRI girl voice. You know the sound I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
If you watch a trailer for anything, it's just that same girl voice doing a recognizable hit, but in a low drone.
Yep.
Nothing is loud. There can be no loud personalities except these. If somebody decides to do, I guess your one pass is if you sign the floating satanic contract that like Ursula from The Little Mermaid presents to you with your quill pen and agree to do gender games, then you have license to be a kind of loud person and wear your pink wig and your demon acrylic nails and go around doing whatever, but it's all in service of this very specific ideology. It's not for just like normal people.
Wow.
Normal people can't be loud or have personalities.
Wow. It's a nation of girls. Is that what we're living in? Like,
I mean, girls used to be fun.
Yeah, right.
But they were like patient zero for all of this shit, you know. And I'm sure we've talked about it on here before, but when like in the 2000s in high school, I would like show my girlfriends, female friends, like Last House on the Left and like Pink Flamingos and Showgirls and Blue Velvet and all this stuff, and they always loved it, and they thought it was funny and interesting. And then they were shipped off to college, and suddenly they came back these shivering wrecks that were also unpleasant and would just like freeze out a party if someone said something that they considered wrong, and they had this this trained performed hysterical reaction against rape scenes in movies, which are said to re-rape the viewer, like in 3D, like they come out and re-traumatize the viewer. Everybody's so like unmoored that academic indoctrination. I just saw it with everyone. It's like, oh, why did you just, so this is supposed, you pay all this money to become like a better, smarter person and understand the world better. And it just has the end result of turning you into a crazy cop.
Yeah.
That's able to appreciate less culture, that's less funny. But yeah, that was a long time ago. And I never thought that would become the dominant culture. And here it is.
God. So what do you think is the motivation here? You talk about it as if it's somewhat of a conspiracy at times, or it's deliberate, that there's been a deliberate attempt to denude the culture, to desexualize it, to take the sounds and the smells and the colors out of it. Why would they do that? The so-called libtards, whoever's responsible for this, what's the motivation here? What would drive someone to seek a world, to create a world of gray?
It's cost effective for them.
Okay.
It consolidates their power. It allows them to do whatever they want. It creates a malleable, superstitious, fearful population that polices itself. Smoking bans, as I always say, were the first implementation of this, where people were given license to be cops and be like really crazy and authoritative and rude about this one particular thing, and they all enjoyed it. A certain type of authoritarian personality enjoyed it because they have this moral backing behind them that, okay, secondhand smoke, which, you know, I don't, is not real. I think it's one of these things that's kind of been proven not to be real. But making the population into just like free cops is good for everyone, because you don't have to pay anyone to enforce this stuff. Like everybody can do what they think is like self-affirmative gender ideology, but is really just acting as the brown shirts of the state and of corporate interests, and preventing anyone from dissenting or criticizing what's going on by stigmatizing it with religious social justice hysteria and tormenting and ruining anyone who argues against it. So it's just the total consolidation of power and the division of society into this like sludge underclass that's delivering the Uber Eats and the little plexiglass COVID cage. And then the email jobbers who are quite wealthy and don't really have a grasp on reality because they don't have to go outside or see what's actually happening, and they don't care about the working class because they just deliver their food. And then there's like the reptiles at the top, like Nancy Pelosi or Kamala Harris or whatever, who they're just these like figureheads, and who knows what's actually going on, because the White House now has this fence around it, and no one can go there and see what's happening because it's all fake. But yeah, it's profitable for everyone, and it makes it easier to control society and absorb massive amounts of wealth.
I'm sold. I think that's a brilliant analysis, and it's power pretending to be fighting power. That's the other brilliant
and thing. It works. Why would they? No one will. It's been 10 years of this. People still like hedge so carefully about criticizing it because of their all important reputations and their friends and social networks and status and reputation, and that they just won't publicly say anything. It's all just go with the flow. You don't want to be the one who gets ratioed online and canceled and persecuted. Well, no one will do it. And this is where we are now. And everyone is sad. Everyone feels that something is missing from their lives. Everyone misses the old world, except for demonic entities who flourish in this atomized environment. And that's it. Nobody has principles. Nobody will say anything when it actually matters. The dirtbag left is this whole little cynical operation that takes laundered, dated, problematic right-wing talking points and spits them out when it no longer matters. Now they all will share the Trump memes, and they like Trump, and they'll maybe hedge that the election was faked, and they'll maybe agree a little that aspects of COVID are cynical and power grabbing and whatnot, but they only do it after it's safe.
Whoa.
They'll never be the ones to say it when it matters.
Whoa.
And they pretend to have the interest of the working class on their side because they have this stupid little romantic communist persona that they got that only rich people get. Only fucking rich, entitled people are interested in communism.
Correct. 100%
because
correct.
They feel guilty for their power, and they don't even.
Correct.
They don't even. They don't even understand it, except that they learn what communism is, and that's some way that they can pretend to have less power than they do.
Yep, and to be on the side of the working class, which they never have been. Absolutely true. Totally true in this country. Certainly, the communists have been overwhelmingly middle and upper class in this country. No doubt about it. Let's finish on a positive note, though, to sound like a cliched podcast host. In your course description, you call for, I'm just going to read it here, engagement with large, uncontainable narratives, reevaluation of forbidden and problematized works, and rediscovery of the neglected sense of smell. We've talked about the sense of smell, but I'd like to talk more about that. So what do you mean by these first two, though? engagement with large, uncontainable narratives. Which narratives are you talking about there?
So basically what I want to do is kind of a shorter summary of what I have done with the Perfume Nationalist, which at this point is like, I don't know, 250 hours or something, which I always tell people to listen to from start to finish in order, like a novel. But overall, I think people have to learn how to be productively bored, and they have to learn to consume art, literature, media in a different way than they've been taught, because there's this socially enforced laziness in the 2010s where anything challenging or experimental or artistic is seen as pretentious, or people feel that they don't have the proper credentials, academic credentials, to be engaging with a challenging work. The fast food menu lifestyle of streaming service, where you hop around to a million different things and watch 15 minutes and then declare that it's boring and act like this is a legitimate opinion. Everyone approaches art this way, where they think that they're superior to it and that they don't have anything to learn, because that's what they teach you in college, that it is your task as the with it sophisticated person to merely go through history with a red pen and point out what's problematic and what harms the indigenous people and women and trans people or whatever. And that's easy. Anyone can do that. What's harder is to actually read a long, challenging book from start to finish, which no one can do anymore.
Right.
So this kind of pride in laziness is really disgusting. Like if anyone thinks of themselves as a movie person now, the way that they approach it is not, okay, here's a masterpiece, an acknowledged masterpiece, a master like Hitchcock or whatever, Citizen Kane. They think that there's this novelty in being the person who comes along and says, actually, I didn't think it was that good. And that's what everyone does about everything now. And the way that I approach art has always been to, as someone who can learn something, who, when I was like in 9th grade watching Bergman and Antonioni, I knew that this was something adult that I didn't understand, but that I could learn from. And rather than just saying, oh, this is boring, this doesn't mean anything to anyone. And you see, we've been talking about the shopping and fucking epics of the 70s and 80s, Scruples and Lace and Sins, these giant romance novels, which are still talked about, but in this like derisive tone, is just camp. And no, these are like amazing, detailed works that could never be written today, incredible works of literature. And this was just like considered trash, that just like regular people, before we had social media to occupy all of our time, it's what regular people read. Just this giant, like incredibly sophisticated and funny and entertaining and well-written novel that, Lace, that spans an entire century and the entire globe and has 5 protagonists, and it all comes together perfectly. And the reputation of this is just, oh, it's like sexy trash. No, it's not trash. Soap operas aren't trash. The great romance novels aren't trash. People have to commit to something. They have to commit to starting something and finishing it for the sake of it. Choose people have to read more fiction. There's this like shortcut to like online power, which is like pretending to know things about theory. And everybody has this like performative distaste for fiction. And I'm saying everyone needs to read fiction, get rid of all the theory and read fiction written before the 2000s. And you will learn so much more about human behavior and human nature from Scruples or Lace or Gone with the Wind or anything than you would from this trash can of theory. So it's just a way to recondition your mind to see things differently and to also complete an intellectual task.
It's yes. So humility, I guess, is the beginning. And I love that. I love that point about how we're trained to think of ourselves as superior to the art. And as our job is only to critique it. You don't appreciate the art. Art appreciation, that's so old fashioned and corny. They used to teach that in college, right? And now
that makes you vulnerable.
Exactly.
Liking it's expressing a genuine positive emotion about art opens you up to critique.
Yeah.
All day, every day, you will be besieged by haters who are like, oh my God, look at this crazy guy it's so cringe, having a meltdown just because you say that you honestly like something and something is honestly good and has spiritually and intellectually enriched your life, rather than having this safe, ironic distance where you're waiting to see what the audience consensus is.
Yep.
So that you can't be called on anything.
Totally. Wow. Brilliant, penetrating, amazing as always, Jack. Thank you for this. So everyone should go to renegadeuniversity.com/courses. You'll see his course right at the top of the page. The War on Beauty in the 21st Century. It's coming up soon. We have many people signed up for it, but many more will. And so get your tickets now. And I can't wait for that course. And thank you for this.
Absolutely.
I just love talking to you. And I think you just have the best cultural analysis going on. I mean, you talk about critique, but boy, you're the best at it in my view.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
All right, Jack. Thanks.
Bye.
This is the Unregistered podcast, and I'm Thaddeus Russell. To join the new Renegade University, go to renegadeuniversity.com. To join the new Unregistered Underground, the supporting listeners group for the podcast, go to unregisteredunderground.com. Thanks for listening.